Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, February 9, 1971. Close Combat Training Hall 7, 1:47 in the afternoon. 200 Marines stood around the edge of the training floor when Bruce Lee walked through the double doors. He did not arrive in uniform. He did not carry equipment. He wore a fitted black long-sleeve shirt, dark trousers, and simple black shoes. His hair was short. His expression was calm. He looked smaller than almost every man in the room. The base commander introduced him as one of the most discussed martial artists in America, a man known for speed, a man known for Jeet Kune Do, a man whose demonstrations had brought fighters, actors, instructors, and athletes into the same room just to see whether the stories were true. Most of the Marines watched with interest. One did not. Staff Sergeant Dax Harlon stood near the back wall with his arms folded across his chest. He was 34 years old, 62, 230 lb. He had boxed for the Marine Corps. He had served 2 tours overseas. He had trained recruits in close combat for 6 years. Nobody on the base had beaten him in a full-contact sparring round in more than 4 years. The men called him Stone Harlon, not because he was impossible to hurt, because he never admitted when something hurt. He watched Bruce cross the floor and smiled, not with respect, with amusement. The commander finished the introduction. The invitation had been arranged weeks earlier. Bruce was not there to replace the base instructors or redesign Marine training. The commander wanted the men to see a different approach from a martial artist whose name had begun spreading far beyond traditional schools. That distinction mattered to the commander. It did not matter to Harlon. He had spent years watching visitors arrive with polished language, clean uniforms, and techniques that failed the moment resistance became real. He had seen men impress a room for 10 minutes and disappear before anyone could ask them to prove more. To him, Bruce looked like another name carried by reputation. The Marines around Harlon knew that expression. They had seen it before difficult drills, before boxing rounds, and before Harlon stepped onto a mat with someone who had been talking too confidently. It meant he had already decided what the other man was. Bruce noticed that too. He did not see hatred. He saw a conclusion formed before observation. That was more dangerous because Harlon believed it was experience. Bruce stepped onto the center mat. "I was invited here as a guest," he said, "not to tell Marines how to be Marines." A few men smiled. Bruce continued, "I was asked to show how I think about distance, timing, and interception." Harlon spoke from the back. "That is a long way of saying hitting first." Several Marines turned. The commander looked toward him. "Staff Sergeant." Harlon lifted both hands. "I am listening, sir." Bruce looked at him. Harlon's smile remained. Bruce turned back to the group. "Sometimes hitting first is the answer." Harlon spoke again. "Sometimes the other man does not stand still while you explain it." The room became quieter. The commander took one step forward. "Harlon, that is enough." Bruce raised one hand. "It is all right." Harlon pushed away from the wall. He walked toward the mat slowly. The Marines opened a path for him. He wore an olive-drab t-shirt, utility trousers, and black combat boots. His shoulders were wide. His hands were scarred. A pale line ran across his left cheekbone from a training accident 3 years earlier. He moved like a man who expected people to make room. He stopped 10 ft from Bruce. "What do you call it?" Harlon asked. "Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist." "Yes." Harlon looked around the room. "That sounds good." He looked back at Bruce. Everything sounds good when the other man is helping. The Marines watched Bruce. Bruce did not answer immediately. Harlon continued, "I have seen demonstrations. One man throws the punch he was told to throw. The other man knows where it is going. Then everybody claps because the answer was already decided." Bruce looked at the men standing around the mat, then at Harlon. "Would you like to throw a punch?" "I did not choose." A few Marines laughed. Harlon did not. "I would like more than one." Section 3, the agreement. The commander stepped between them. "This is a guest appearance, not a challenge match." Harlon looked past him, then let him demonstrate. Bruce's expression did not change. Harlon pointed toward the center of the mat. "One round, no student, no assistant, no planned attack." He pointed at Bruce. "Just you and me." The hall became silent. The commander turned to Bruce. "You do not have to answer that." Bruce nodded. "I know." Harlon folded his arms again. "You came here because people know your name." Bruce looked at him. "You think that is why?" "I think cameras made you famous." "There are no cameras here." Harlon smiled. "Exactly." That was the first moment the room truly changed. The Marines were no longer watching a demonstration. They were watching one of their own men challenge a guest in front of the entire unit. Harlon took another step. Movie speed, movie punches, movie students. Bruce remained still. Harlon pointed at the mat. Try it on someone who hits back. The commander's voice became harder. Staff Sergeant Harlon, stand down. Harlon did not look away from Bruce, sir, with respect. He came here because he is supposed to be the real thing. The commander answered. He came here because I invited him. Harlon nodded. Then let him leave as a guest. He looked directly at Bruce, but do not let him leave pretending that was fighting. The words entered the room and stayed there. Bruce looked around at the Marines. Some expected him to refuse. Some expected him to become angry. Harlon expected both. Bruce removed his black jacket and folded it over a wooden bench. Then he stepped onto the center of the mat. You want 1 round? Harlon's smile returned. 1 round, no demonstration, no planned attack. Harlon shook his head. You will not know what is coming. Bruce looked at him. Neither will you. The first row of Marines reacted. Harlon walked toward the edge of the mat and removed his watch. The commander caught his arm. You will follow the rules. Harlon looked down at the hand. What rules? No eye attacks, no throat attacks, no strikes after a man is down. I stop it when I say stop. Harlon nodded once. The commander turned to Bruce. The same. Bruce nodded. Section 4, they face each other. Harlon stepped onto the mat. The size difference became clearer when they stood together. Harlon was nearly 7 in taller and 90 lb heavier. His forearms looked built to break grips. His boots were planted wide. He carried the confidence of a man who had controlled training rooms for years. Bruce stood lightly. His hands were open. His shoulders were relaxed. Harlon looked at the stance and laughed. That is it, Bruce answered. You have not moved yet. The commander raised one hand. 1 round, 3 minutes. Harlon glanced toward the men around the mat. You will not need 3. Bruce heard him, so you have said before the first movement. The room held 2 different ideas of what was about to happen. Harlon believed the round would separate performance from reality. In his mind, Bruce had built a reputation around controlled demonstrations, cooperative partners, and audiences that wanted to believe. Bruce saw something simpler. A trained man stood across from him with real speed, real strength, and years of experience under pressure. Harlon was not a fool. He was not a beginner. He was dangerous because he had solved the same kind of problem many times and had begun believing every problem was the same. The Marines around the mat understood Harlon's power. Many had felt it personally. He had dropped them, pinned them, corrected them, and ordered them back up. They trusted his toughness because they had seen it at close range. Almost none of them had seen Bruce fight freely. That uncertainty belonged to the whole room. Harlon mistook it for an advantage. Bruce treated it as silence. Then the commander dropped his hand. Begin Section 5. The first exchanges. Harlon moved first. He did not throw a wide punch. He stepped in behind a fast left jab aimed at Bruce's face. Bruce shifted half a step. The jab missed. Harlon followed with a straight right. Bruce turned his shoulder and let the punch pass. Harlon immediately hooked toward the ribs. Bruce moved outside the arc. 3 attacks, no contact. Harlon stopped. The room remained quiet. He had expected Bruce to retreat quickly. Bruce had barely moved. Harlon raised his hands again. Good. Bruce watched him. Was that the demonstration? A few Marines laughed. Harlon's face tightened. He stepped forward with another jab. This time he used it to hide a low kick toward Bruce's lead leg. Bruce lifted the leg, avoided the kick, and touched Harlon's chest with the heel of his palm. Not hard, only enough to stop the forward movement. Harlon looked down at the hand. Bruce removed it. You were open. Harlon swung a short right hand from close range. Bruce intercepted the forearm before the punch formed. His other hand touched Harlon's ribs, then Bruce moved away. The exchange took less than a second. Several Marines leaned forward. Harlon turned. Touching is not fighting, Bruce answered. You asked me to intercept. Harlon rushed. He threw a left toward the head, a right toward the body, and stepped in to grab. Bruce avoided the first, redirected the second, but Harlon's left arm closed around his shoulder. The Marines reacted. Harlon drove forward. He used his weight to push Bruce toward the wall. This was where he wanted the fight. No open distance, no room for speed, only size, leverage, and pressure. Bruce's back came within 3 ft of the padded wall. Harlon tightened the hold. You cannot dance now. Bruce struck the inside of Harlon's arm with one hand. The grip shifted. He stepped across Harlon's lead foot, turned his hips, and disappeared from the line of pressure. Harlon hit the wall shoulder first. The impact echoed through the hall. Bruce stood behind him. Section 6. The room changes. The first escape changed the way the Marines watched. Until then, many of them had expected speed. Speed was part of the story around Bruce Lee. They were prepared to see quick hands and sharp movement. They were not prepared to see a man of Harlon's size redirected with so little effort. Harlon had not been thrown by strength. He had driven himself into the wall because Bruce had changed the line at the exact moment the pressure became complete. The difference was small. The result was not. Several Marines near the front looked down at Harlon's feet. They were trying to understand what Bruce had seen. Harlon noticed them looking. That irritated him. He had built his authority around being the man who explained why other people failed. Now his own men were studying him as an example. He raised his hands and moved again. This time there was less mockery in his face, more attention. That made him more dangerous. Harlon had real experience. Once he stopped performing for the room, his balance improved. His punches shortened. He stopped reaching for Bruce's head and began closing the exits first. Bruce had wanted him to become honest. Honesty did not make the fight easier. It made the threat clearer. Harlon turned quickly. The Marines were no longer smiling. The commander watched closely. Harlon rolled one shoulder. "You moved," Bruce answered. "That was the idea." Harlon attacked again. This time he did not chase Bruce's head. He closed distance behind both forearms and forced him toward the edge of the mat. Bruce moved left. Harlon cut him off. Bruce moved right. Harlon stepped across the path. The Marine was learning. He understood pressure. He understood how to make a smaller man run out of space. Harlon drove a heavy punch toward the body. Bruce blocked most of it, not all. The strike touched his ribs and moved him sideways. The Marines shouted. Harlon smiled. There. Bruce touched the place once. Harlon advanced. That is what happens when the other man hits back. Bruce looked at him. "You landed part of one." Harlon's smile disappeared. Section 7, lifted off the floor. He attacked with more force. A jab, a right hand, a hook. Bruce moved through the spaces between them. The jab missed by an inch. The right passed over his shoulder. The hook struck Bruce's raised forearm. Harlon used the contact to grab. His hands closed around Bruce's upper arms. He lifted. Bruce's shoes left the mat. Harlon carried him 2 steps and drove him toward the padded wall. The crowd of Marines shouted. Harlon pinned Bruce with his body. Now the size difference mattered completely. Bruce's arms were trapped. His back pressed against the wall. Harlon leaned close. No room. Bruce looked down. Harlon's feet were planted wide, too wide. Bruce lowered his weight, turned one shoulder and struck the inside of Harlon's thigh with his knee. The Marine's base shifted. Bruce struck the ribs with a short palm, then the chest. Harlon's grip loosened. Bruce dropped to the floor. Before Harlon could close again, Bruce stepped behind the lead foot and turned. Harlon lost balance. He went down onto one hand and one knee. The room exploded. Harlon stayed there for 1 second, then he stood. His face had changed. The fight was no longer a test of Jeet Kune Do. It was now a test of his authority. Every Marine in the room had seen him forced to one knee. Harlon looked at Bruce. "You think that counts?" Bruce answered. "You went down." Harlon charged. Section 8, full power. The commander shouted, "Control it." Harlon did not hear him. Threw the right hand with full power. Bruce moved outside and struck the body. Harlon turned with the left. Bruce ducked and kicked the front thigh. Harlon's leg stiffened. He swung again. Bruce stepped in before the punch opened. One hand stopped the biceps. The other struck the chest. Harlon stumbled back 1 step. He recovered immediately and fired a short uppercut. Bruce leaned away. The fist passed close enough to move his hair. The Marine saw the danger. Harlon was not slow. He was trained. His punches were compact. His feet stayed beneath him. He understood how to fight under pressure. Bruce understood something else. Harlon's right shoulder tightened before every power strike. His front foot turned outward before every attempt to drive forward. When his pride was touched, he stopped protecting the body. Bruce began working there. A short kick to the thigh, a straight hand to the chest, a compact strike beneath the ribs. Then he moved. Harlon chased. Bruce stopped him with a kick to the hip. Harlon forced through it. Bruce hit the body again. Harlon grabbed at the shirt. Bruce slipped free. The Marines started reacting to every movement. Some shouted for Harlon. More began shouting for Bruce. Harlon heard it. That made him reckless. He stepped forward and slapped his own chest. "Stand here." Bruce remained where he was. Harlon pointed at the floor between them. "No running, no tricks. Stand here and fight." Bruce looked at the marked spot, then at Harlon. "You want me where you are strongest." Harlon smiled. "Afraid?" "No." Bruce stepped onto the spot. The room became silent. Section 9, the second takedown. Harlon moved in. He threw the left jab. Bruce redirected it. The right followed. Bruce slipped inside. Harlon tried to close both arms around him. Bruce struck the ribs twice. Harlon's elbows dropped. Bruce hit the center of the chest. Harlon threw a hook from close range. Bruce intercepted it at the forearm. Struck beneath the chin with the heel of his hand. Harlon's head snapped back. Bruce kicked behind the lead knee. Harlon dropped to one knee again. This time the room did not explode immediately, it went silent. The strongest man in the unit was kneeling in front of the guest he had mocked. Bruce stood close enough to strike. He did not. Harlon looked up. Bruce stepped back. Get up. Harlon's eyes hardened. He rose. The commander moved closer. That is enough. Harlon raised one hand. No, he looked at Bruce. He has not finished anything. Bruce answered. You are the one asking to continue. Harlon breathed through his mouth. His chest rose quickly. A dark mark had begun forming along one side of his ribs. He looked at the Marines around the mat. Men he had trained, men he had corrected, men he had thrown to the floor and ordered back up. They were watching him wait for permission to continue. Harlon could not accept that. One more exchange. The commander shook his head. The round is still running. Harlon looked toward the clock. Only 1 minute and 22 seconds had passed. He had believed the challenge would last less than 30. Bruce had already put him down twice. Section 10, the grazing punch. Harlon raised his hands. Bruce waited. This time Harlon did not rush. He circled. He tested the distance with the left. Bruce did not bite. Harlon stepped outside Bruce's lead foot. He used to feint toward the body and drove the right toward the head. Bruce moved just enough. The punch grazed his temple. A sound moved through the room. Harlon followed with a shoulder and forced Bruce backward. He trapped one arm and tried to turn behind him. Bruce shifted, but Harlon maintained the grip. The Marine locked both hands around Bruce's waist from the side. He lifted. Bruce's feet left the floor again. Harlon turned toward the mat. He intended to throw him hard enough to end the discussion. The commander moved forward. Bruce hooked one leg around Harlon's knee. He struck the side of the neck with an open palm. Harlon's grip weakened. Bruce shifted his weight. Both men fell. Harlon hit first. Bruce rolled free. The impact echoed through the building. Harron tried to rise immediately. His right leg failed. He caught himself with one hand. Bruce stood several feet away. Harlon looked at the leg, then at Bruce. The humiliation reached him before the pain. He forced himself upright. The Marines had become completely quiet. Harron's face was red. His breathing was heavy. Bruce's black shirt was stretched at one shoulder. A red mark showed near his temple. He was breathing harder now, too. The fight had not been effortless. That mattered. Harlon was dangerous. He had touched Bruce. He had lifted him twice. One successful throw could have changed everything, but he had not controlled a single full exchange. Every time he believed he had Bruce trapped, Bruce had used the trap against him. Harlon raised his fists again. Section 11, the commander steps in. The commander stepped onto the mat. Staff Sergeant, stop. Harlon looked at him. Sir, that is an order. Harlon's jaw tightened. Then Bruce spoke. Let him finish. The commander turned. Bruce watched Harlon. Bruce watched Harron. He asked for one round. Harlon nodded. The commander stepped back slowly. One more uncontrolled strike and I stop it. Harlon did not answer. Bruce lowered his hands slightly. Harlon saw it as an opening. He moved a fast jab. Bruce slipped a hard right. Bruce moved outside. Harlon kicked toward the thigh. Bruce lifted the leg. Harlon followed with a left hook. Bruce blocked. The Marine pressed forward behind the contact and finally drove Bruce against the padded wall. This time he did not reach for a wide grip. He used one forearm across Bruce's chest and struck short with the other hand. The first punch hit the body. The second touched the shoulder. The third never formed. Bruce trapped the wrist. Bruce trapped the wrist. He turned the elbow. Harlon's posture broke. Bruce stepped away from the wall and pulled Harlon forward. The Marine stumbled. Bruce struck the body, then the thigh, then the chest. Harlon backed away for the first time. The Marines saw it. Harlon saw them seeing it. He roared and rushed again. Bruce intercepted him with a side kick to the center of the body. The impact stopped Harron completely. His boots slid backward across the mat. The room erupted. Harlon bent slightly and tried to breathe. Bruce remained in front of him. You called it a trick. Harlon straightened. You have not beaten me. Bruce looked at the clock. 1 minute left. Section 12. Harron becomes real. Harlon's best sequence came after he stopped trying to prove that Bruce was a fraud. He stepped into range behind the jab and did not overextend. Bruce moved outside, but Harlon had already placed the lead foot across the escape. The right hand drove toward the body. Bruce blocked. The impact still moved him. Harlon followed with his shoulder and forced him backward. The Marines reacted. For the first time, Harlon did not chase the reaction. He kept his elbows close and moved with patience. A short left touched the ribs. A forearm blocked Bruce from turning out. The wall came closer. Bruce watched the change. Harlon was finally using what he actually knew instead of what his pride demanded. The next exchange became the most dangerous of the round. Harlon pinned one side with his shoulder and attacked the body with compact punches. Bruce absorbed one on the arm and another across the ribs. The third strike almost reached the jaw. Bruce moved inside the punch before it completed. His forehead came close to Harlon's chest. One hand controlled the attacking arm, the other struck beneath the ribs. Harlon tightened his stance. Bruce hit the same point again. The Marine's breath broke. Bruce turned beneath the shoulder and escaped. Harlon followed immediately. No anger, no shout, just pressure. Bruce kicked the thigh. Harlon accepted it and kept moving. Bruce struck the chest. Harlon gave one step and returned. For several seconds, neither man controlled the entire exchange. The Marines saw something important. Harlon had not become harmless simply because his certainty was wrong. He remained disciplined, strong, and capable of ending the round. Bruce's advantage was not that the Marine had no answers. It was that Bruce continued seeing the question sooner. Section 13, final 30 seconds. Harlon wiped sweat from his mouth, then use it. He stepped forward more carefully. For the first time, he respected the distance. He kept his elbows closer. He did not overreach. The Marines could see him adjusting. Bruce could too. Harlon jabbed toward the chest. Bruce parried. The right followed lower. Bruce turned. Harlon did not chase. He stepped across the escape and fired the left hook. Bruce blocked, but the force moved him. Harlon hit the body. The punch landed clean enough to make Bruce exhale. Several Marines shouted. Harlon pressed a short right toward the jaw. Bruce leaned back. The fist missed. Harlon drove the shoulder into him and forced him toward the center. The Marine had found his best moment. He was no longer fighting the insult. He was fighting the man. Bruce recognized the change. He also recognized how late it had come. Harlon attacked with a compact combination. Left, right, left to the body. Bruce redirected the first, slipped the second. The third touched the ribs. Harlon stepped in to grab. Bruce struck the arm, then the body. Harlon kept coming. Bruce kicked the front thigh. Harlon ignored it. He swung the right. Bruce intercepted at the biceps and hit the chest. Harlon staggered but remained standing. He answered with a short left that grazed Bruce's shoulder. The Marines were shouting for both men. The commander watched the clock. The clock did not help Harlon. It exposed him. Every second showed the Marines another thing he had promised would not happen. Bruce was still standing. Harlon had been put down twice. The smaller man had escaped the wall, the lift, the grip, and the pressure. Harlon could feel the unit measuring him now, not measuring his courage. No one doubted that they were measuring his judgment. He had called the method useless before testing it. He had mocked the guest before observing him. He had chosen the fight and the rules. Now he had less than half a minute to recover the certainty he had brought onto the mat. That pressure became visible in his face. 30 seconds. Harlon heard it. He looked at Bruce, no more moving. Bruce answered, "Then catch me." Section 14. The final fall. Harlon charged. Bruce met him. The two men collided near the center. Harlon's forearm struck Bruce's guard. Bruce's palm hit the chest. Harlon grabbed the shirt. Bruce struck the ribs. Harlon pulled him close. Bruce hit the body again. Harlon's grip weakened. Bruce turned outside. Harlon caught one arm and tried to drag him back. Bruce stepped with the pull. He struck beneath the jaw. Harlon's head lifted. Bruce hooked behind the knee. Harlon fell onto one hand. He pushed up immediately. Bruce waited. The Marines had stopped shouting. 20 seconds. Harlon stood. His legs shook. He looked at the men around the mat, then at Bruce. He understood that the round was almost over. If he allowed the clock to end it, he could tell himself he had survived. That was not enough. He needed one final attack. He needed one clean moment that could erase everything before it. Harlon drew a breath. Bruce watched the right shoulder tighten. The front foot turned outward. The same signs, the same attack, only slower now. Harlon rushed. He threw the jab. Bruce brushed it aside. The right hand followed with everything left behind it. Bruce slipped outside. He struck the body. Harlon folded slightly. Bruce hit the center of the chest. Harlon stepped back. Bruce kicked behind the damaged knee. Harlon dropped but caught himself and forced his body upward again. The Marines gasped. Harlon roared and threw one last hook. Bruce entered before the arm opened. His forearm stopped the biceps. His palm struck beneath the chin. His foot swept the lead leg. Harlon lost balance completely. He hit the mat on his back. The impact shook dust from the edge of the training floor. The commander raised one hand. "Stop." Bruce stopped. Harlon tried to sit up. His arms moved. His body did not. He turned onto one side. One knee came beneath him. He tried to stand. The leg failed. The entire unit watched. The same man who had called Jeet Kune Do a trick was now on one knee, unable to rise in front of the Marines he trained. Bruce stood several feet away. He did not celebrate. He did not smile. He did not turn toward the crowd. He waited. Harlon tried again. His hand pressed against the mat. His legs shook. He reached a crouch and fell back to one knee. The silence became heavier. Bruce looked at him. You wanted someone who fights back. Harlon breathed hard. Bruce took one step closer. Now get up. The words struck harder than an insult. Harlon looked around the room. Every face was turned toward him. He placed one boot flat, then the other. He forced himself upright. He stood unsteadily. Section 15. What the room saw when Harlon finally stood after the last fall. He looked older than he had 3 minutes earlier, not weaker, older. The round had removed the expression of a man certain that experience had already given him every answer. He looked at the Marines nearest the mat. Some had trained under him for years. None were laughing. That made the admission possible. He understood that another excuse would damage him more than the defeat itself. The men had seen the full round. They had seen his best moments. They had seen his mistakes. He could not protect his authority by pretending nothing had happened. Real authority now required the one thing he had refused at the beginning, observation without pride. Bruce gave him the space to choose. He did not demand an apology. He did not tell the Marines what to think. He simply waited until Harlon could stand and speak for himself. That restraint made the moment harder. Harlon could not blame humiliation on cruelty. Bruce had given him no insult to fight, only the result. The commander remained ready to step in. Harlon looked at Bruce. His chest rose and fell. A mark had darkened along his ribs. Sweat ran through the scar on his cheekbone. His pride had survived punches before. It had survived throws. It had survived pain. It had never survived being wrong in front of 200 men. Harlon lowered his hands. That was not a demonstration. Bruce waited. Harlon swallowed. I was wrong. No one moved. Bruce looked at him. You were certain. Harlon's jaw tightened. Bruce finished. That is worse. Section 16. The room returns to order. The room remained silent for another second. Then the commander stepped between them. The round is over. Bruce nodded. Harlon did not. He kept looking at Bruce, not with friendship, not yet, but the mockery was gone. The commander turned toward the unit. Back in formation, the Marines moved slowly at first, then in lines. The room returned to order, but it did not return to what it had been. Before the round, Harlon's authority had filled the hall. Men listened because he had experience, rank, and a record none of them had challenged successfully. After the round, the authority remained, but the myth around it had changed. The Marines had seen him adapt. They had seen him land. They had also seen him become angry, overcommit, and refuse information that did not match what he believed. That made the lesson larger than the fight. A man could be brave and still be wrong. A man could be trained and still become trapped by his own certainty. A man could possess strength and lose control of how he used it. Bruce had not taken Harlon's rank. He had taken away the excuse that rank, size, or experience made observation unnecessary. Section 17. After the doors closed, Bruce walked toward the bench and picked up his jacket. The young Marine nearest him spoke quietly. Sir, Bruce looked over. How did you know what he would do? Bruce looked toward Harlon. I did not know everything. The Marine waited. I watched what he gave me. Across the mat, Harlon heard the answer. He sat on the edge of a bench while a corpsman checked his leg and ribs. The corpsman pressed one spot. Harlon winced. Nothing broken, the corpsman said. Harlon looked toward Bruce. That is not the problem. The corpsman followed his eyes. No. The commander approached Bruce near the doors. Apologize for the way this happened. Bruce put on his jacket. You invited me as a guest. I did. He invited me to fight. The commander looked back at Harlon. He will answer for that. Bruce shook his head. He already did. The commander almost smiled. You still have 20 minutes on the schedule. Bruce looked toward the Marines forming again. They have seen enough. Harlon stood from the bench. His leg remained stiff. He walked toward Bruce. The Marines noticed but stayed in formation. Harlon stopped several feet away. I have one question. Bruce waited. When I had you against the wall the second time, why did you not move earlier? Because you were still adjusting. Harlon frowned. You let me improve? No. Bruce looked at his feet. I let you believe the position belonged to you. Harlon looked down. You waited until I committed. Yes. Harlon was quiet. That is the intercepting fist. That is part of it. Harlon nodded slowly. He did not ask for another round. He did not offer his hand. He stepped aside. Bruce walked through the double doors. The hall stayed quiet until they closed behind him. Section 18. How the story spread. Only then did the Marines begin talking. Some repeated the throws. Some argued about the final combination. Some insisted Harlon had nearly ended it at the wall. Others remembered the moment Bruce told him to stand. The story spread across the base before the afternoon formation ended. By evening, men who had not been inside combat training hall 7 already knew the outline. Bruce Lee arrived as a guest. Staff Sergeant Dax Harlon called his art a trick. Harlon demanded a real round. Bruce accepted. The strongest man in the room went down 3 times. The last time he could not rise on the first attempt. The details changed with each telling. Some said Bruce never moved more than a few inches. Some said Harlon had been thrown across the entire hall. Some said the final exchange lasted less than 1 second. The men who stood closest remembered something simpler. Bruce never fought the way Harlon expected. When Harlon used power, Bruce used angle. When Harlon used pressure, Bruce used timing. When Harlon used anger, Bruce used information. And when Harlon finally began fighting with discipline, Bruce was already too far ahead. Section 19. The morning after. The following morning, Harlon entered the same hall before sunrise. No unit waited for him, no commander watched. He stood alone on the mat. The room looked smaller without 200 Marines around it. He walked to the wall where he had pinned Bruce. He placed one forearm against the padding, then he looked at his feet, too wide, too much weight forward. He repeated the position, shifted 1 foot, tried again. The first sergeant entered and watched from the door. Harlon noticed him. "You need something?" The first sergeant shook his head. "I wanted to see whether you were blamming the floor." Harlon looked at the mat number. "The rules?" "No." "The guest?" Harlon turned. "No." The first sergeant stepped inside. "Then what are you doing?" Harlon placed his foot again, clears throat, watching what I gave him. The first sergeant nodded. That answer reached Bruce weeks later through a mutual acquaintance. Bruce did not celebrate it. He did not need Harlon to become a student. He did not need the base to declare Jeet Kune Do superior to every other method. The point had never been to create believers. The point was to remove certainty. Harlon had entered the hall convinced that anything demonstrated could not be real. He believed fame weakened proof. He believed a smaller man needed cooperation to look effective. He believed pressure solved every problem. The round removed those beliefs one by one. Section 20. What changed? Months later, Harlon was supervising close combat training with a new group of Marines. One recruit kept forcing the same takedown. Each time it failed, the recruit tried harder. Harlon stopped him. "What are you seeing?" The recruit looked confused. "An opening, Staff Sergeant." "No, you are seeing the opening you want." Harlon repositioned the man's feet. "Watch what he gives you." One of the older Marines heard the phrase and looked at Harlon. Harlon ignored him. He never told the full story during training. He never used Bruce Lee's name to make himself sound connected to something famous. But he changed 3 things. He stopped mocking methods before testing them. He stopped confusing aggression with control. And whenever a man became too certain, Harlon made him explain what he had actually observed. The scar on his cheekbone remained. The nickname remained. His authority remained. But the laughter was gone whenever someone mentioned Jeet Kune Do. Section 21. What the Marines remembered. Years later, a former Marine described what happened inside Combat Training Hall 7. He did not remember every punch. He could not repeat every sentence. He remembered Harlon standing at the back with his arms folded. He remembered Bruce looking small in the center of the room. He remembered the challenge. Try it on someone who hits back. He remembered the first time Harlon went to one knee. He remembered the second throw. He remembered the final fall. Most of all, he remembered the silence when Bruce told him to get up. That was the moment the room understood the difference between defeat and humiliation. Defeat was falling. Humiliation was having every man around you see that your certainty had been false. Bruce did not need to insult Harlon. Harlon's own challenge had done the work. He had selected the rules. He had demanded the round. He had rejected the demonstration. He had promised that a real opponent would expose the trick. Then, before the same Marines who had heard every word, he had been unable to stand on the first attempt. Section 22. Closing Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. February 9, 1971. Combat Training Hall 7. Bruce Lee arrived as a guest known for Jeet Kune Do. Staff Sergeant Dax Harlon called it movie fighting. He demanded one real round. He wanted a man who would hit back. Bruce gave him exactly what he asked for. 3 minutes later, the strongest Marine in the room was on one knee, admitting the truth in front of his entire unit. He had not exposed Bruce Lee. He had exposed himself.